Alaska, the last frontier. A vast area rich in culture and history, where explorers, mountain men, gold prospectors, and fur traders once roamed. A land of inspiring natural wonders with towering mountains, dense forests, awesome glaciers, and some of the most challenging and daunting waters a boater can face. It was here that Suzuki and Glacier Bay boats came to put their products to the ultimate test. The trip covered over 2,500 miles from Seattle through the Inside Passage to Juneau and then on to the Kenai Peninsula, including a treacherous 400-mile passage across the Gulf of Alaska. The goal was to show that a modern trailerable boat and motor combination could cover great distances in a wide variety of sea conditions. Two 26-foot Glacier Bay catamarans were prepared and outfitted with twin Suzuki 150-horsepower motors. This combination of catamaran and twin outboard motors offered the crews a top speed of 45 knots and a daily range of 250 nautical miles. As the boats headed out on the first leg of the journey to Glacier Bay, they were excited by the adventure and fully aware of the challenges.
These waters up here are very treacherous. There's a lot of floating debris, bits of ice as we've seen coming off the glaciers and stuff. So you got to make sure everything is running properly.
The run to Glacier Bay was roughly 70 miles, and after avoiding the ice chunks and admiring the spectacular wildlife, the crews arrived to discover 13 spectacular glaciers flowing from the surrounding mountains into the bay. The crews then prepared for the longest and potentially most dangerous leg of the trip, across the Gulf of Alaska to Cordova. Before leaving for Cordova, extra precautions were taken, which in several hours' time would prove to be invaluable.
We've got a real long run, 240 nautical miles, and with these engines, they like to run at a higher speed, and it just gives us that speed, and we don't have to worry about fuel on the trip. Probably have enough fuel without it, but the safe thing to do is to have some extra fuel.
The first leg of the crossing would take them to Yakutat Bay, where they would top up the tanks and prepare for the far more challenging part of the journey. The crews got a late start, and as evening fell, they had to alter their course to avoid areas now at low tide.
It's a swell coming in from the southwest.
All right, we'll be on your transom.
10-4, good buddy.
Roger that.
The entire run from Yakutat to Cordova is unprotected, and the boats would be totally at the mercy of the ocean wind and the waves. Farther out in the bay, the boats encountered pouring rain, limited visibility, winds up to 25 knots, and seas running at 10 to 12 feet. Hour after hour in rough seas and freezing water, they powered the boats to safe harbor in the lee of Hingenbrook Island near Cordova. And while the motors were willing and able to continue, the crew took a much-needed break. The next morning, they motored across to the commercial fishing town of Whittier by way of spectacular Prince William Sound. With the night's dinner safely in the cooler, the boats set sail for Seward. The next morning, the crews were on the move again, rounding the lush Kenai Peninsula and heading for Homer, Alaska, their final port of call. In all, the Suzuki-powered Glacier Bay catamarans covered 2,650 miles from Seattle to the Kenai. Along the way, the crews saw spectacular sights they'll remember forever.
Do it in a boat, a little boat.
They got a thrilling, up-close look at some amazing wildlife.
Awesome. Whales, and birds, and sea otters laying and rubbing their tummies.
And yes, they achieved what they set out to prove. That Suzuki outboards and Glacier Bay cats definitely have what it takes when your life calls out